since a beautiful panther is portrayed to me as her image, for this I love its skin. I keep it as a coat for myself. This woman sews it. Sometimes she sighs, sometimes she groans. Since I cannot kill myself, in vain is my sword whetted. Avtandil said, Listen to what I say to thee. I speak to thee as a sage and not as a madman. 100 times must thou give heed, once sufficeth not. A man so furious of heart can do naught well. Now I desire to see her for whose sake hot fire consumes me. I shall see her. I shall confirm her love for me. I shall tell her what I have learnt. Naught else have I to do. I beseech thee to assure me for God and heaven's sake, let us not abandon one another. Make me swear, and make thou an oath to me. If thou promise me that thou wilt not go hence, I shall assure thee by an oath that for naught shall I forsake thee. I shall come again to see thee. I shall die for thee. For thee shall I rove. If God will, I shall make thee cease to weep thus for her for whom thou diest. When Avtandil was gone thence, sadness was surely slaying him. He scratched his face, he rent the rose of his cheeks, his hand he shortened. All the beasts licked up the blood that flowed from him. His swift pace shortened the long course. He sent a message. O king, proud art thou in might and majesty. I venture to tell thee this thing with fear, respect, and precaution. I esteemed myself worthless in that I had learned naught of that night. Now I know and will tell thee all. I come in joy and safety. Tinatin rejoiced at the hearing of this news. That day she was merry at the drinking, and eating was not wearisome to her. That son met in his bedchamber a slave with a courteous word. She ordered him to come to her. Tongue cannot tell how pleased he was. He recounted all his misfortunes and sorrows by the road during the quest. Then he told her how God had thought him worthy to find what he desired. World, life, man seems to him as to a beast. Alone he roams mad with the brutes. He weeps in the field. When the maiden heard this story, fulfillment of the will, her moon-like face shone as 'twere with radiance at the full. She said, What answer can I make to give comfort to him and pleasure? And what is the balm for the healing of his wound? The knight replied, Who has confidence in a rash man? He for my sake sacrifices himself to be burned, he who must not be burned. I have appointed the time of my return. I have promised him to sacrifice myself for him. I swear it by my son, whom I contemplate as a son. A friend should spare himself no trouble for his friend's sake. He should give heart for heart, love as a road and a bridge. Then again, the grief of his beloved should be a great grief to a lover. Lo, without him, joy is naught to me, and myself I hold of none account. The sun-like one said, All my heart's desire is fulfilled. First, thou art come in safety, having found that which was lost. Then the love implanted by me in thee has grown. I have found balm for my heart, hitherto burned. Thou dost well not to break the oath thou didst swear. It is necessary to fulfill strong love for a friend, to seek for his cure, to know the unknown. But tell me, what shall I, luckless, do if the sun of my heaven be hidden? The knight replied, I have heard your discourse. I have understood what you command. The rose reveals the thorn. Why should I prick myself therewith? But, O sun, become altogether a sun for me, and let me carry with me some hopeful token of life. He says, Rustum did not grant me leave. He hearkened not even to a word from me. He knows not wherein one's being lies, and how one's life is in another. Without Tariel, in truth, I live not, neither abroad nor at home. What unrighteous deed has God ever forgiven to anyone? 3 are the ways of showing friendship by a friend. First, the wish for nearness, impatience of distance. Then, giving and not grudging, unweariedness and liberality. And attention and aid, roaming in the fields to help him. I am such an one as will not gather cucumbers in this world as an old man, one to whom death for a friend seems a sport and a play. I have left my son, she grants me leave. Why should I linger? Then, if I can bear to go from mine own home, whose can I not bear to leave? He sat down to write the will, thus piteously inditing. O king, I have stolen away in quest of him I must seek. I cannot remain sundered from him, the kindler of my fires. Forgive me, and be merciful to me, like as God. I know that in the end thou wilt not blame this my resolve. A wise man cannot abandon his beloved friend. I venture to remind thee of the teaching of a certain discourse made by Plato. Falsehood and two-facedness injure the body and then the soul. Since lying is the source of all misfortunes, why should I abandon my friend, a brother by a stronger tie than born brotherhood? I will not do it. What avails me the knowledge of the philosophizing of the philosophers? Therefore are we taught that we may be united with the choir of the heavenly hosts. Thou hast read how the apostles write of love, how they speak of it, how they praise it. Know thou it, and harmonize thy knowledge. Love exalteth us. This is, as it were, the tinkling burden of their song. If thou conceive not this, how can I convince ignorant men? He who created me, even he gave me power to overcome foes. He who is the invisible might, the aid of every earthly being, who fixes the bounds of the finite, sits, immortal God as God. He can in one moment change 100 into 1, and 1 into 100. What God wills not, will not become fact. The violet fades, the rose withers, if they cannot gaze on the sunbeams. Every lovely thing is desirable for the eye to gaze on. How can I endure the lack of him, or how can life please me? However angry thou art, forgive me that I have not kept your command. Enthralled, I had no power to fulfill it. No, to go was the remedy for the flaming of my furnaces. Wherever I may be, what matters it to me if I have but my free will? Sadness avails thee not, nor useless flow of tears. The deed which is inevitably decreed above cannot be avoided. It is a law with men that they should struggle and suffer woes, and no creature of flesh hath power to thwart providence. Whatever God has predestined to come to pass upon me, let it be fulfilled. And when I return, my heart will no longer remain ashes. May I see you also joyful in majesty and manifold wealth. What I can do for him is my glory, and this is sufficient booty for me. O king, this is my decision. Slay me if anyone can disapprove. O king, Can it be that my going grieves thee? I cannot be false. I cannot do a cowardly deed. He would shame me when we meet face to face in that eternity whereto we both shall come. Mindfulness of a friend ne'er doeth us harm. I despise the man who is shameless, false, and treacherous. I cannot be false. I cannot do it for a mighty king. What is worse than a hesitant, tardy-going man? What is worse than a man in the fight with a frowning face, shirking, affrighted and thinking of death? In what is a cowardly man better than a woman weaving a web? It is better to get glory than all goods. A narrow road cannot keep back death, nor a rocky one. By him all are levelled, weak and strong-hearted. In the end, the earth unites in one place, youth and grey beard. Better a glorious death than shameful life. And now I fear, O king, to make this request to you. Mistaken, mistaken is he who expects not death momentarily. It which unites us all comes alike by day and by night. If I see thee not living, life will be fleeting for me. If fate, the destroyer of all, destroy me, an orphan I shall die travelling, unmourned by parent, nor will those who brought me up, nor the friend whom I trust, enshroud me. Then, indeed, will your merciful tender heart have pity on me. I have countless possessions, weighed by none. Give the treasure to the poor, free the slaves, enrich every orphan without means. They will be grateful to me, remember me, bless me. I shall be thought of. My testament is ended, written by mine own hand. Behold, mine upbringer, I have parted from thee. I am gone away with maddened heart. Let not the sovereigns be grieved for my sake. Be ye not clad in gloom, but be ye in your sovereignty, feared by foes. Now will I begin the story of that night's departure. He goes away and weeps with boiling heart. It cannot be said that his tears diminished. Every moment he turned back. He prayed that he might find his sun-like one in sun-like beauty. He gazed, he could not detach his eyes. If he tore them away, he lost consciousness. The knight, weeping, besprinkled with tears, set himself to search. He seeks, he calls, he cries aloud, watching by night as by day. For 3 days he traversed many a glen, reedy thicket, forest and field. He could not find him. Sad he went, unable to learn any tidings. Weeping and pale, the knight went his way and spoke. He mounted a certain hill. The plain appeared in sunshine and shadow. He saw a black horse standing with the reins on his neck on the edge of the rushes. He said, "Undoubtedly, it is he. Of that there can be no doubt." When he saw Tariel, he was indeed grieved. Tariel sat with drawn face, in a state near unto death. His collar was rent, his head was all torn. He could no longer feel he had stepped forth from the world. On one side lay a slain lion and a blood-smeared sword. On the other, a panther, stricken down a lifeless corpse. From his eyes, as from a fountain, tears flowed fiercely forth. Thus, there, a flaming fire burned his heart. He said, "Brother, I was not false to thee. I have done what I swore to thee. Unparted from my soul, I have seen thee. Thus have I kept my vow. Now leave me. Till death I shall weep and beat my head. But I entreat thee for burial, that I be not yielded to the beasts for food. The knight replied, What ails thee? Why doest thou an evil deed? Who hath not been a lover? Whom doth the furnace not consume? Who hath done like thee among the race of other men? Why art thou seized by Satan? Why kill thyself by thine own will? If thou art wise, all the sages agree with this principle. A man must be manly. It is better that he should weep as seldom as possible. In grief, one should strengthen himself like a stone wall. Through his own reason, a man falls into trouble. Tariel said, Wise! Who is wise? What is wise? How can a madman act wisely? Had I my wits, such discourse would be fitting. The rose cannot be without the sun. If it be so, it begins to fade. With my tongue will I relate to thee, in detail, all that hath befallen me. Then indeed, with wise heart, judge the truth. I expected thee, awaiting thee was irksome to me. I could no longer endure the cave. I wished to ride in the plain. I came up that hill. I had traversed these reeds. A lion and a panther met. They came together. They seemed to me to be enamored. It rejoiced me to see them, but what they did to each other surprised me, horrified me. I came up the hill. The lion and panther came walking together. They were to me like a picture of lovers. My burning fires were quenched. They came together and began to fight. Embittered they struggled. The lion pursues, the panther flees. They were not commended by me. First they sported gaily, then they quarrelled fiercely. Each struck the other with its paw. They had no fear of death. The panther lost heart, even as women do. The lion fiercely pursued. None could have calmed him. The behavior of the lion displeased me. I said, Thou art out of thy wits. Why annoyest thou thy beloved? Fie on such bravery. I rushed on him with my bared sword. I gave him to be pierced by the spear. I struck his head. I killed him. I freed him from this world's woe. I threw away my sword. I leapt down. I caught the panther with my hands. I wished to kiss it, for the sake of her for whom hot fires burn me. It roared at me and worried me with its blood-shedding paws. I could bear no more. With enraged heart, I killed it too. However much I soothed it, the panther became not calm. I grew angry. I brandished it, dashed it on the ground, shattered it. I remembered how I had striven with my beloved. Yet my soul tore not itself altogether out of me. Why then art thou astonished that I shed tears? Avtandil also wept with him and shed tears. He said, Mischance pursues the lover, embitters life for him. But to him who at first bears woe, it yields joy at last. Love is grievous, for it brings thee nigh unto death. It maddens the instructed, it teaches the untaught. I beg no more than leave for a year and a week. Here, in the cave, look for me, when I have gathered news from every quarter. as a token of that time, I give thee the season when these roses shall again bloom abundantly. The sight of the roses will make thee start, as at the bark of a dog. Readers of these verses, your eyes also are shedding tears. What, alas, shall heart do without heart, if heart part from heart? Absence and parting from a friend are the slayers of a man. Who indeed knows not, understands not, how hard is that day. Wherever Avtandil sees travellers walking by the shore, he addresses them. He asks tidings of that son, Nestan. He roamed 100 days. Avtandil crossed the sea. With stately form went he. They saw a city engirt by a thicket of garden, with wondrous kinds of flowers of many and many a hue. In what way canst thou understand the loveliness of that land? The sea realm is this, 10 months' travel in extent. This is the city of Gulanshara, full of much loveliness. Hither everything fair cometh by ships sailing from sea to sea. Melik Suravi rules, perfect in good fortune and wealth. Fatman, grand merchant Usan's wife, met him in front of the door. Joyful she saluted him. She showed her pleasure. They greeted each other. They went in and seated themselves. His coming annoyed not Dame Fatman. Dame Fatman was attractive to the eye, not young, but brisk, of a good figure, dark in complexion, plump-faced, not wizened, a lover of minstrels and singers, a wine drinker. She had abundance of elegant gowns and headdresses. The knight was clad as a merchant. He was by no means dressed in his proper raiment. Sometimes Fatman calls on him, sometimes he visits Fatman. They sat together, they conversed with refined discourse. Absence from him was death to Fatman, as Ramin's was to Viz. Desire of Avtandil went into the heart of Dame Fatman. Love grew from more to more. It burned her like fire. She essayed to conceal it, but could not hide her woes. She said, "What am I to do? What will avail me?" She reigned. She poured forth tears. She wrote a piteous letter to be presented to that youth concerning her love, revealing her sufferings, moving and shaking the listener's heart. A letter to be kept, not to be idly torn up. Dame Fatman wrote and sent the letter to the knight. The knight read it as if it were from a sister or kinswoman. He said, "She knows not my heart. Who is she who courts the lover of her whose I am? The beloved I have, how can I compare her beauty to this one's?" Said he, "What hath the raven to do with the rose, or what have they in common? But upon it the nightingale has not yet sweetly sung. Every unfitting deed is brief, and then it is fruitless. What says she? What nonsense she talks! What a letter she has written!" This kind of thought he thought in his heart. Then said he to himself, "Save thee I have no helper. For the sake of that for which I am a wanderer, since I wish to seek her, I will do everything by which I can find her. What else should my heart heed? This woman sits here seeing many men, a keeper of open house, and a friend to travellers coming hither from all parts. I will consent. She will tell me all, however much the fire burns me with its flames. Perchance she will be of some use to me. I shall know how to pay my debt to her. When a woman loves anyone, becomes intimate with him, and gives him her heart. Shame and dishonour she weighs not, being wholly accursed. Whatever she knows she declares, she tells, every secret. It is better for me, I will consent. Perchance I shall somewhere find out the hidden thing. Fatman said, I will tell thee all, from the beginning. Prepare to listen. In this city it is a rule that on New Year's Day no merchant trades, none sets out on a journey. We all straightway begin to deck and beautify ourselves. The sovereigns make a great court banquet. Merry, I entertained the merchants' wives, pleasantly, in a sisterly way. While drinking, without any cause, a distaste came upon me. When they perceived me thus, they separated, all that sat at meat. I was left alone. Some sadness fell on my heart like soot. I opened the window and turned my face to the sea. I looked out. I shook off the sadness growing within me. Far away, I saw something small. It floated in the sea. Methought a bird or beast. To what else could I liken it? From afar, I could not recognize it. When it came near, it was a boat. 2 men clad in black, and black also of visage. On either side stood close. Only a head appeared. They came ashore. That strange sight astonished me.